What's up, everyone? Ben Grove here with my Mega Evolution Cube review. If you're opening up some packs as the new set is just dropping, you might find some of these cards in there that are going to be great additions for your cube. As always, make sure to check out CubeKoga.net for great cube resources, some Discord links, and some great cube building inspiration. And check out LimitlessTCG.com. That's where I got all the translations. It's a fabulous website. It's got everything you need for competitive or fun format Pokemon TCG. All right, hopping in here, just a reminder, when I'm looking at these new sets for cards that you could include in cube play, we're not really going to talk about like a lot of the really powerful EXs, because part of what makes cube great is the interaction between cards from different eras and how those are going to work together. So Mega Guardia EX, probably a little bit too powerful for any of the cubes that I'm going to build, so I'm going to be looking for some real diamonds in the rough. First up here, I've got a trio of cards that I want to mention, but I don't necessarily think that they're great for cube. Lily's Determination, it's an absolutely bonkers supporter, combining the best of both the original Lily card and Cynthia. It's an immediate player in Standard, I think, but I don't like it for cube just because it so clearly eclipses a ton of unique supporters from Pokemon's past. My guess is if you're a real cube player, you probably want to reminisce more and play with some of the other cards. Second, Mystery Garden is an absolutely powerful stadium card. The draw ability is kind of reminiscent of Genesect V, but for psychic Pokemon that you have in play. I think the power that this card can output for such a low deck building cost is very strong. If you compare it to another stadium from Pokemon's past, Scorched Earth, which is discard an energy, draw 2, Mr. Garden just absolutely eclipses it. I also think it kind of encourages players to draft a mono psychic deck, which is kind of antithetical to what I think about cube, where you want to be able to mix and match types really well. Finally, the Hariyama here has an ability that's basically like Luxury GL or Lycanroc GX. And its attack of 210 damage for 3 fighting energy. This card's just extremely strong. It just hits like a truck. So we have this effect so many other times. I just don't think this is the best example of it. And as much as I love Hariyama, I think this one's a miss for me. All right, the next trio of cards here I have is old cards that are reskinned with some different types. There's a ton of fighting support in this set. Fighting gets its own version of Electro Power and Netball. Darkness types get a Magma Secret Base equivalent, which is awesome. I think there's been a lot of dark Pokemon that can synergize with the spreading damage counters around ability. You think of like Honchkrow, Absol, and Yveltal are some of the ones that come to mind to me. And metal types also get a little bit of support in here with an Electro Power that's more in metal's aesthetic. It's a 30 damage defender instead of a 30 damage plus power. I don't think this card is as good as the Electro Power equivalent, but you could definitely find a niche for it in the right power level. Like if you're looking for a little bit more damage reduction in your metal type than like special metal energies, but you're looking for something less than a metal frying pan, which is just like a permanent 30 reduction on a tool, or metal core barrier, which is a 1-turn 70 damage reduction. This kind of fits in underneath those. So if balance-wise you've had some of those cards and they're really powerful and you're looking for something in between, this one might be for you. All right, looking at some evolving Pokemon next. The Numel and the Ralts from this set are just really good value basics in some Pokemon lines that just have a ton of great cards out there. Obviously, Gardevoir is probably the most famously overfilled Pokemon line in the TCG's history, and so just like having a 70 HP collect basic, that's great, and a Call for Familymon is always welcome from Numel. My favorite of these basics actually is Exeggcute. I think it's deceptively good for Q. There's a lot of older Exeggutor cards, like the one from Legends Awaken, Fire Red Leaf Green, Aquapolis, and Jungle. They all have attacks that are flipping coins for amount of energy attached. So this Exeggcute with the Pack-Tight attack just slots really nicely in with that. You're just getting more energy in play for your fun but flippy attack. And finally, we have a Kadabra here. with an ability. When it evolves, you draw 2 cards. We've seen this ability on a Golbat from Battle Styles. It's just good consistency, and it synergizes with an Alakazam we're going to talk about in a second. One of my favorite things actually about this set was that if you went to a pre-release, basically you're guaranteed you walked away with a pretty cubable card. Each one of the pre-release promos I think could see cube play, and I personally love just like it's just a little bit of bling for your cube. The pre-release stamp is absolutely awesome. One of my favorite cubes in my IRL cube is my Leafeon pre-release promo from Undaunted. It's just a card that I've had in my possession since like 2010 or whatever that set came out. So it has a lot of sentimental value to it when like I was a kid and I went to a pre-release and I thought that was so cool. So I love pre-release promo cards. Alakazam is probably the least cubable of these, in my opinion, kind of because it's just kind of boring and it just hits really hard. I mean, it's got a good ability, the Psychic Draw ability. When you play it from your hand, you draw 3 cards, and that synergizes exactly with the Kadabra that we just talked about. But that's just kind of really good on rate, and for 1 energy, the attack that does 2 damage counters for each card in your hand. Like, if you have 7 cards in your hand, you're already doing 140 damage. So it's a really powerful attack, which nothing wrong with that. It's just not particularly my favorite. Let's move on to the Inteleon though, which I think it doesn't look it doesn't even look as interesting as Alakazam at face value, but I think it's really worth a mention because of how well it pairs with other things that Inteleon already does with other existing Inteleon cards. The Water Shot attack is really lackluster. 1 for 110 discarded an energy. It isn't hitting 1-hit KOs, and it's consistently eating up your energy attachment for turn. So not a great attack, but Bring Down, it pairs perfectly with Quick Shooting Inteleon. If you're already putting 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon every turn, or maybe more if you have more Quick Shooting Inteleons in play, you're basically guaranteeing that you're going to snipe down one of their bench Pokemon with Bring Down. And you can obviously target down things. So like if your opponent has an Octillery on the bench, and you throw like 2 Quick Shooting Pings onto it and it's down to 50 HP, you can snipe it down with Bring Down. So I think that the Inteleon in the set is a perfect synergy piece with other existing Inteleons, and I think that's why it's worthy of some cube consideration. Moving on to Meganium, it's awesome to see some respect put on Gen 2 starters. Gen 2 was the one that really got me into the game, and I've really felt that the Pokemon Company has put them on the back burner, especially in the TCG space, compared to Gen 1 and Gen 3. Meganium's here with a Wild Growth ability, which provides double the energy that basic grass energy provides, so 2 energy, 2 grass instead of 1. It's an ability we've seen 3 other times, and the Venusaur here is probably the most famous. It's in a ton of cubes. It's also in GLC. It's really been an all-star card. Honestly, I think the Venusaur is still better than the Meganium. It's a little bit more searchable with, like, you can use Heavy Ball to search it, and doing 90 for 2 is a lot more fair than doing 140 for 2. The Meganium really just is the energy, acceleration, and attacker all in one. But if you've had the Venusaur in your cube and you're like, I need it to do a little bit more, I mean, this is just a flat upgrade, and how cool for Meganium to get this ability again, because it was the original one that had it. All right, moving on now. Before we move on to the final pre-release promo, I kind of want to set the stage here with some history. If we look back at Generation 4 Pokemon, so Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, that era is known for having some of the most broken effects in all of the TCG's history. You think about Legends Awaken Uxie with setup. It draws 1 more card than Shaming X did, and it's not a 2-prizer. Stormfront Sableye lets you go first, and you can either like get consistency with using a supporter with its attack, or it also has donking potential. And then also like Spiritomb from Arceus. which does essentially what Badu does today, but it also has half of a TM Evo stapled into it. So like really bonkers broken, awesome cards. But all those kind of pale in comparison to Claydol from Great Encounters. It just blows all draw engines out of the water with cosmic power, which puts 2 cards on the bottom of the deck in order to draw 6. And like there are some weird quirks with that, notably that like you can just put 2 on the bottom of the deck if you have more than 6 in your hand, or you basically prevent yourself from decking out using that power. It's really powerful on the face of it, but it also just has so many corner cases to it that just like make it really, really cool and just way, way, way too overpowered. And in Cube too, it's been really controversial. A lot of the like quote unquote competitive cubes that I've played, like either it's not included at all or it was included at one time but it's been removed, because if you're trying to play cube really, really competitively, Claydol is a really unfair advantage. And cubes that do include it, I've seen a lot of times like people are like, I am pack one pick one Baltoy because there's one Baltoy, one Claydol. I don't care. I'm taking Baltoy as my first pick, and then somebody else pack one pick one's Claydol, and then you just wasted a pick, because like it's honestly like kind of makes sense to try and get Claydol because of how good it is. It makes people aggressively hate draft it or just like aggressively try and get it. And in standard Pokemon, the Pokemon Company has kind of recognized also how powerful Claydol was. Since Claydol, we have never had a fighting type Pokemon that draws cards with a Pokepower or ability. And on this slide here, I'm just including some of the other draw engine Pokemon that we've seen from other types. Every other type, including fairy type, has had a draw engine since Claydol came out, except for fighting. Until now with Lunatone, which is my best in show for the set. Its Lunar Cycle ability is very similar to Delcatty from Ruby Sapphire's Pokepower, where you discard an energy, draw 3 cards. For Lunatone, the specifications are you have to have a Soul Rock on the bench, and it has to be a basic fighting energy you're discarding. But not big hoops to jump through. Awesome consistency piece, really exciting card. I will say that for Cube, it's not without faults. The attack power gem is 2 for 50, so it's kind of strong on its own. It's going to be too powerful for some cubes. I think that it needs to be in like a cube that's based around Gen 5 or newer. And it does eat up some bench spots, but that's not too bad. That's easily played around. I think though for mutant cubes, this is going to be absolutely awesome, because a lot of times in mutant cubes you'll have one of the draw engines for every type baked in there, and then fighting type is just like in the past they've had like, okay, well we've got like precognition abilities where we just like can look at the top of the deck and rearrange it. But no, we actually have a draw engine built in, which is so exciting. And if you want to get like really unfair with it, there's also a Soul Rock, I think it's from Legend Maker, where you can lock your opponents out of colorless Pokepowers. So you can lock your opponent out of backup Porygon 2 or Quick Search Pidgeot, like the original one, while you're using your own draw ability. I'm really excited for the potential of this card, and drawing cards while playing a fighting type deck. Very excited. This card's an absolute banger. Okay, moving on from after the promos, our next card we're taking a look at is Celebi. Its Time Traveler attack is very reminiscent of Kricketot from Breakpoint, allowing you to search for 3 of any combination of grass Pokemon in stadiums. Inside the set itself, it's meant to combo with the Forest of Vitality card, which I'll touch on later. But outside of the set and in Cube, this card, it's just an absolute house in terms of setup. I've included just like some of the stadium options you could get here. Like Curstone, there's a lot of grass type decks that run without Pokepowers or abilities, that run more on like Pokebodies. So there's a lot of real potential with that. And the thing I will touch on with its attacks here, normally setup basics that have like and energy in their attack cost are a lot lower in value. We think of cards like Beacon, Alolan Vulpix as like one of the gold standards of setup basics, because you don't have to attach an energy to it. So like if you don't start it, you can attach and retreat and still attack on that first turn. I think though that this Celebi is worth it in comparison, even though you have to attach that energy. It's just really good. And additionally, the attack that it has with just 30 for 1 is just kind of good enough to like put on a little bit of pressure. If you've already got all the Pokemon you need and your opponent is still like they've got their setup basic out there, you just 30. It's a really good attack too. So looking forward to seeing this one in cubes. Next up here is Shuckle with the Fermenting Juice ability. This is just a powerful grass bench sitter that can slot into a ton of cubes. Once per turn, you can heal 30 damage from one of your Pokemon if you have a grass energy attached to Shuckle. And you can see all of the energy trans guys that I've included that go well with this Shuckle. Energy trans is a classic ability and power that we've seen on grass type Pokemon. You can move grass energy around the board as often as you like during your turn, so you're not even committing any energy to the Shuckle itself for using its power. So I think that's a really great way to make this a synergy piece. Additionally, the attack on Shuckle is pretty reasonable, 2 for 30. It's not that is pretty low powered, so that it could fit into some lower power cubes. I will note though that if you're like attacking Shuckle, you will be getting the 30 damage heal every turn. So that's the flip side you kind of have to account for in it. But I think 2 for 30 is pretty reasonable. I could see this in like a Gen 4 era level cube, but it could probably fit in pretty well. So excited to see this Shuckle in some cubes. Next up, we have something I'm also very excited for, an interesting Grumpig card. I love when there are just like goofy guys that don't get as much love in the Pokemon space getting cool cards. And this Grumpig's very fun. The effect, though, we've seen plenty of times before. We've seen it recently on a Vileplume, there's a Togekiss, there's a Trumbeak that all have this ability. Looking at the top, and then specifically this time we're looking at the top 4 cards of your deck and attaching any number of basic energy cards you find there. So top 4 for stage 1 is pretty decent rate. It's better than a Gloom. I think it was in 151. There's a Gloom that does 3, but the Trumbeak also does 3, so it's buffing up the power level of it. And there's tons of ways to facilitate this. I mean, you can look at power circulation mons like Delcatty here, or Mantine, or Celio. There's supporters like Cypher Maniacs, or Mallow, or Oracle. There's even stadiums like Academy at Night, or like you can even have items like Rotom Phone. Like this ability is one of the most supported out there. So there's a lot of potential for this card. And like the body on it, it's 120 HP. And does only 60 damage, so it can fit in pretty reasonably with some other Grumpigs out there that are like from the 5th and 6th generation. Really excited for this card. Next up is Raikou. Raikou's Electric Fall attack does 30 plus 90 for 2 lightning if you have at least 4 energy in play. And we've seen this attack before on 2 cards that were very, very powerful in standard format. The Cresselia from Chilling Reign and Volcanion from Unbroken Bonds. The challenge for those cards, including them in cube, is that they do it all. They do the energy acceleration and the attacking. So that's why I actually really like this Raikou, because it's a more fair version. It just does the attacking part. You have to have the energy acceleration on your own. And Lightning type is a great type that has that. I could definitely see this in a like Gen 7 or later era cube, where you've got like a Dynamote or Flaffy or an Electric that's providing the energy acceleration for this guy. And then you just bring the Raikou into the active and hit for big damage. Definitely a card that's worthy of consideration if you're looking for some lightning big basics. All right, moving on to a supporter card. There's been a lot of great items, and there's going to be some great stadiums I'm going to talk about, but there's not that many options for supporters. I mentioned Lily's Determination already, and that's on the super powered end of the spectrum, but I think Lieutenant Surge's deal is on the much weaker end. I do love the design. Ask your opponent if each player should take a prize card. If yes, both players take a prize. If no, you draw 4 cards. It's really goofy. It fits some flavor of some other Lieutenant Surge's cards from before. I'm just not sure it's worth your support for the turn. I will give it credit. It's a lot more powerful than Unknown End or Surge's Treaty. Those, your opponent is like never incentivized to choose the prizes. 1 card is not that much. So I think this is worth a shot in some cubes that are like a lot less powered in terms of supporters. Maybe as a way for an aggressive deck to just like finish out the game before your opponent's like stage 2 deck can turn the corner on you. All right, well, the Lunatone from the set is the best in show. I think this is my favorite card from the set. Surfing Beach. It's a stadium that allows players once per turn to switch their active water Pokemon with one of their bench water Pokemon. Face value, it synergizes well with triggering attack conditions like Poliwrath from Evolutions with his Dashing Punch. And it can also facilitate hit and run strategies. You attack with a hit and run mon and you swap into like this Safeguard Suicune or something like that. But the card doesn't just read your water Pokemon have free retreat. It lets you swap in a bench mon, then like use its effect and then still have a retreat available to go into your attacker. So like Ocean Search Manaphy is one of my personal favorites. I think this will enable where you can swap in the Manaphy, search for Pokemon, have an air balloon attached to this or something like that, free retreated out. There's some other great ones that work with this. There's a Suicune from Lost Thunder that has a repel effect on it when it's in the active. Greninja Break, you can weave in more Greninja Break pings. If you got like 2 Greninja Breaks, you can switch between them or something like that. I don't know. And then there's also Mysterious Treasures Luminion. When it's in the active spot, it can gust Pokemon under 100 HP. It's not the most overwhelming attacker, so I think that could really facilitate that card in Cube, because I think that's been an underplayed card. It's got a lot of potential. All right, moving on now to a almost kind of scary stadium, I think. When you think of this card here, you're thinking of Forest of Giant Plants, obviously. It's one of the most universally maligned cards out there. There are a lot of examples of games where you got this card in play on turn 1 and you evolved up into your Vileplume with item lock, and your opponent was locked out of the game before they even got a turn. Forest of Vitality attempts to fix this by adding an except for each player's first turn clause to that, which I think makes it like worthy of a test, because this kind of effect and being unique to grass types, I think is something that is worth it to try and Cube, because it's an interesting, flavorful thing that grass types can do. So if you're looking for a way to buff up your grass types, I think this is potentially worth it. Definitely better than Forest of Giant Plants. That card can sit in binders for all I care. I'm not a fan of that one, but this one I think is worth a try. All right, that's my list. Honestly, not a lot of generically good things in this set, but a lot of cool type-specific support that I think will make Mega Evolution stand out as a pretty solid Cube set for a while. What cards are you looking forward to? What cards did I miss? Make sure to let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.